I think it's the very root of self-esteem. How could a person feel confident about themselves if they weren't competent at something?
Right.
A person doesn't have the right to feel confident about themselves if they can't do anything well. Take a chat with the homie Anthony Smith. Anthony's in the UFC. Many of you know his face and recognize his tattoos and unique hairstyle. You see him in the desk calling fights, talking about the pre and post shows and various events. And you got one of the most professional fights any of the guys over there. Get over 50 pro fights in, huh?
Yeah, I've been at it a long time. Started early, and the Midwest scene's a little different, so people are trying to get as many fights as they possibly can. There was times where I was fighting every weekend, fought anyone and everyone possible, looking for an opportunity and trying to pay the bills.
That's a lot. You're still in your early 30s, got over 50 pro fights in, won many more than half, won 36 professional wins.
Yeah. I took a lot of losses early. I was in a lot of fights that, mentally and emotionally I was ready to be in, and maybe physically and technically I wasn't prepared for. So I like to tell people that I've had two careers. I kind of had the early one where I learned a lot of lessons, and kind of this last half of my career is, in my opinion, kind of the real one.
Gotcha. What are some of those lessons? My audience, I'd like to hear the gritty stories of, coming up just to give you some context, the type of people that are clients with me are, I want to say it politely, but there's no lazy people. We don't do lazy shit. You have to fill out an application to work with me. You can't just click a button on a website and spend time with me or get my attention. So I only work with people that are, above average education, above average work ethic, that they want to go do something, and they might never went to college. So when I say education, I'm a high school dropout. I went to college later, got 3 college degrees after that, spent 9 years in universities later. But, some of my clients are people that never spent a day in college, but they're very talented. They're a talented athlete or a military person, or, they developed a craft, a skill. They're very good at something, So I should say it more precisely. My clients are people, they already learned how to learn. They're already good at something.
Right.
And they got a great work ethic, and they want help with the things that I help them with too. And we kind of focus on, just the no bullshit version of, like, what does it take to get something done? What's that tough, gritty shit look like to actually get results instead of telling yourself happy stories and getting weak results, Yeah. What was that like early for you?
It's ugly. It's ugly, and it's filled with a lot of pain, to be honest with you. I had the work ethic, I had the drive and determination, and I just didn't necessarily always have the tools behind me to maybe win, not just in those individual fights, but just in those life situations that I was being put in. But it's ugly, man. It's a lot of Indian reservations in the Midwest and the Dakotas and deep in farm towns in Iowa, fighting in barns and strip clubs and country bars where people are riding mechanical bulls while the fights are going on, and the judges are smoking cigarettes, blowing the cigarette smoke into the cage that you're fighting in. You're spending more money to get to the fight and stay at the hotel than you're going to make if you win, and that's if you win. If you lose, you're losing your ass, and you're losing money that you didn't have anyways. And those are I think those are the moments that define me. I think a lot of people kind of check back to that Glover Teixeira fight where I was probably I probably got the worst beating I've ever gotten in my life. But I remember standing up in that 5th round, and I could feel that everyone was worried, and that a lot of people didn't want me to be in there in that 5th round. But I also remember thinking, this isn't anything compared to a lot of the stuff that I've already dealt with just in life and in my career previous. This is temporary pain. I'm fighting on the main event of an ESPN event, making more money than I would have ever thought I could have ever made back in those days. So it wasn't that bad to me. It was my turn to be in that situation. I put a lot of people in those situations as my career has gone over the last 15 years. So that's kind of how I looked at it. But those early days it's just pain and loss. And, I can't even tell you how many relationships that I've lost because those relationships or friendships or people that I was involved with didn't line up with what I was trying to do. And sometimes just through self-preservation, you end up in some relationships and situations that long-term aren't necessarily the best for you. Mm-hmm. But in the moment, it's what you needed. You end up with shitty characters, and you end up hanging out with people that don't have your best interests in mind, but for the short term, it's what you needed to get by in that moment.
Yeah, it made me think of many things in my own life that were, not fun situations early in life. That my father was in prison most of my childhood. My mother wasn't the best mother, and my audience knows the details, and I won't spend your time with it. But I was kind of in charge of the house since I was about 10 years old, and nobody wants to be in that spot. Really, that's not really fun. No. So I had to learn a lot of things about leadership and entrepreneurship that I didn't necessarily want to learn at that age, and it was really miserable at the time. And a lot of those moments early on that made my life now, where nothing gets me excited. In my late 20s, 30s, 40s. Mm-hmm. So anything bad that happened to me, you'll get this. So I have a confidence from some of those experiences in life that I went to jail for like 90 days when I was a teenager. I was 17, 18 in adult jail. And at that time, there's no cameras there. So, if you're not willing to fight when you walk in there, you got different type of problems.
Right.
I wasn't open-minded about those problems. So you're going to fight on day one and maybe a few more times, Mm-hmm. And, I got stabbed when I was young, different, those type of experiences, And, today, if people are, as silly as this might sound to you, is, people's, if I have a bad day in the stock market, people say, "Oh, you okay?" Like, yeah, but I'm fine. I'm good, don't worry. Yeah. I had plenty of good days in the stock market too. So
right. And that's kind of my point. Like, there's a bad day in a UFC fight is not the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Yeah. It's not that big of a deal. There will be more fights. And I'll be back on the other side of that at some point in time. It's I don't know if it's ironic or it's really interesting. Like, I did spend a lot of time, 17, 18, 19 in and out of jail for a lot of stupid shit. I never hurt anybody. I never stole from anybody. And it was a lot of things I was doing to myself. It was a lot of partying and I had some loss in my life and trying to, I just acted out and ended up in some bad situations. My dad was a crack cocaine addict from the time I was 5 years old. He was in and out of prison himself. Fortunately we were able to work that out a few years before he died. But, my mom was a good person. She worked really hard, but she just wasn't necessarily present. She had 2 kids that she's trying to raise on her own. So I think maybe I mirror you a little bit in that, like, just I kind of had to just figure it out. I don't want to say I was on my own because I had people around that cared, but I kind of had to learn life kind of on a trial and error basis. That's for sure.
I talk about that a lot, and I call it guess and check,
Yeah.
And if you had to, cause, I was 10, 11, 12, and I knew I wanted a lot better life, but I'm just a fucking kid, and I don't know what to do, and I didn't have really, I had a lot of negative role models. I had a lot of people around me that, you've seen things in the community where, like, I see heroin's not a good idea. Like, that's not a good life path forward, Later on, as an adult, in graduate school, I had professors that were like Nobel Prize winners, like plural, where now I have like, multi-time champion athletes that come train with me in boxing or MMA and stuff. And at that time, as a kid, I would have done anything to have, just a normal middle class person to kind of point you in the right way.
Right.
Say, hey man, less of this and more of that.
Right. Just a normal guy guiding you in the right direction would have been okay then.
So that's something I kind of got addicted to that idea. I'm curious your thought about it, but that was so painful to me to go do guess and check, where you got to try something and you get, smacked around physically or smacked around, psychologically in life because you don't know any better. And at least you tried. At least you were trying to do something. And, to my credit, or I imagine you're the same type of person, to your credit, that like, when you had some early setbacks, you were resilient to be like, I found something that didn't work well, so let me try something different,
Yeah.
But I got really addicted to the idea of I wanted to go find the best coaches or mentors or trainers, anything new that I want to learn. I still have such like psychological pain, if you will, or memories of that from early in life that I'm like, I think it's very painful to try to figure shit out by yourself. So I just want to find like the best people that are doing something and, make it worth their while to help me.
I compare, at least it's a good analogy for me. The way that I parent my own children is very similar to how kind of I've been leading my whole life. I didn't have the father figure in my life to like teach me, this is how you do this, and this is how this is supposed to go, and here's your punishment for this. Like I didn't have that person doing that. My mom was working really hard to keep a roof over our head, and I had to figure that stuff out. So I know exactly what not to do as a parent because of my own life experiences, because I know what I missed out on. I know where I would have liked to have had a father figure or someone that was kind of guiding me through life. And I use that moving forward to my own children. So I don't necessarily listen. People pretend that they know exactly the right things to do as a parent. Everyone's got it figured out. I don't know shit about shit. And I got a 10-year-old, they're 10, 7, 4, and 3.5 months. So, and I still don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I know what not to do. I know the things that aren't going to work. I know the things that didn't work with me. I know the things that I missed out on. So I just try to do the opposite of that. So, and that's kind of how I figured it out. Like, and I think I'm doing an okay job, and I still fuck it up a lot, but, that's kind of how I look at life. Like, all right, I got this whole huge sample size of things that didn't work. And I just use that and figure out, okay, I remember doing that. So I'm not going to do that thing. So if there's ever a choice where I have 3 things, like this is kind of the direction I can go, those 2 things didn't work one time. So it takes kind of all my guesswork out of it, because I had all that pain, all that experience, all the negative things that went wrong. I'm going to try this thing that I haven't done yet. And there's a good chance that it's going to end up getting checked back with the other things that didn't fucking work either. But at least I'm not making those same mistakes again.
Can we go back before we talk of some of the great successes that come later? Can we go back and talk about maybe one of those memorable moments from the early in your career when you're in the barn in Iowa? I grew up in Illinois, by the way, and I know Iowa pretty well. So when you say that, it's very visual to me. That I can imagine being in a barn in Iowa and a rural community. But maybe whatever the context is, one of those. What was a rough night like at that time, where you have the judge with the cigarette smoke, or just rough environment, rough situation? Could you paint a vivid picture of one of those tougher moments in life?
Yeah. So I think, like a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of your clients can relate to this. I think when you're young and you have your whether it's your first love or whether it's your first heartbreak or whatever it is, I just ended up in a real bad situation in life. And, I kind of turned to alcohol and was just partying my ass off. And, I ended up getting into a, long story short, it's easy to look it up. I ended up in a drinking and driving accident, and I was 20 years old, was life flighted, was on life support. It was a big old mess, but and I talk about this concept that I'm going to kind of explain a lot as I move forward from that, but I call it the home run mentality. So I ended up getting in trouble. I went to jail. I was on probation. The judge gave me a chance to kind of turn my life around. And I remember taking a fight with a guy named, God damn, his last name was Lynch. Charlie Lynch was on The Ultimate Fighter real early. Dana White famously says Charlie Lynch had the worst broken nose he's ever seen in his whole life. But I get offered this fight with a guy named Charlie Lynch. He's a Minnesota guy. And it's in some just bullshit BFE place. And I shouldn't have been fighting. I was fresh out of a car accident. It was probably only a couple months later. And in my mind, if I can just go there and I can just beat this Charlie Lynch guy, I think I had lost a couple fights in a row at that point too. If I can just go there and I can beat Charlie Lynch, I'll just swing for the fences. Not so much literally, not even in the fight, but if I can just swing big and get myself into a big opportunity, make all this negative stuff go away that's happening to me right now, and I'll get back on track. So I go there. The fight is on my 21st birthday, and Charlie Lynch beats the absolute shit out of me. I just wasn't prepared to be in that situation. Emotionally in that point in my life, but even technically, I didn't have the skills to be the guy like Charlie Lynch at that time. And I just remember how terrible of a feeling that was afterwards. Like, I'd lost a couple fights. I'd been in this horrific accident. I was the idiot who was drinking and driving. I was embarrassed. I was in all this trouble. My career was going nowhere. I was definitely not going to make it. I was fighting the urge to do all the stupid shit that was going to get me put back in jail. went to this place and think I'm going to beat this guy and it's going to fix everything. And it didn't. I ended up in a worse place. And that's one of there's 3 low moments in my life that stand out to me. And that was probably the first one. That was the first kind of turning point in my life, trying to figure out, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I good enough to be here? Am I going to make it? Am I going to make it not just in this sport? Am I going to make it in life? Like, where am I going to end up? And that was my fork in the road. That was kind of, which way are we going on these tracks?
Yeah, those are tough moments, man. And where did you turn that around, or what was the thought process that helped you turn that around? That goes from that to, you beat some really tough guys, recently in your career. In recent years, you beat a couple former champions, went 5 rounds with Jon Jones. Mm-hmm. I don't know that. I'm not sure that round 1 would work out so good for me. So 5 seems very impressive to me. What was that? What was the thought in your head, or the series of events that led to the thought that turned that around to help you become the person that you are today, and some of the fantastic successes you've had so far?
At that time, I had to figure out. Well, first of all, I think when it comes to people being successful, I think you have to know what you want, and it has to be specific. I think it's easy to say, I want to be successful, or I want to be rich, or I want to be champion of the world. Like, they're so vague that that doesn't actually fucking mean anything. It really doesn't. Like,
I totally agree. I don't want to interrupt. I totally agree.
Like, what does that mean? Like, what does success mean to me? Well, at that point in time, success to me meant going to the gas pump and putting the hose in my car and filling it up and not looking what it cost, and just being able to fill it up. I was going to the grocery store and getting what I needed, not what I could afford. That was successful to me at that time in my life. So I had to, and I had some people that believed in me and my skills and abilities, and were more successful than I was. And I've been very fortunate. It wasn't something that I sought out. I got very lucky that people were able to see through the bullshit and the stuff that was going around me, and maybe the storm that I was creating myself. They could see the real me, and they could see the real drive and my willingness to work and give max effort. So that's kind of what the people around me helped me do is we need to take this big, broad, vague goal of I want to be a world champion. Well, I didn't even know what the hell that meant. Like, there's a lot of other shit that has to happen before you can be a world champion. Like, you got to be able to throw a straight punch first. You got to be able to beat guys on the regional scene. You got to be able to make it to the UFC first before you can be a world champion. So, like, let's just forget about this world champion thing. Like, that's a long-term goal. It's always going to be the goal. Let's stop even thinking about that, because there's other things we need to get to first, and those are going to take a long time first. So you're almost fogging your own brain, because you're putting this unattainable goal that at that time it was impossible for me to be a world champion, because I hadn't done those other things. So that was number 1, was just figuring out what those next steps were. So it was, well, we have to get on a winning streak first. We have to win, that's important. So we got to win those fights first. And that was as far as I was allowed to think. It wasn't, I want to win fights and make it to the UFC. It was, we just need to win fights, because below that goal is a lot of skills and abilities that I don't have that I need to have. And we have to figure those out. So I started it, I want to be a world champion. And then it got down to, okay, I need to be in the UFC. Well, that's not specific enough. Okay, we need to win fights. Well, that's not even specific enough. We need to figure out how to be more defensively responsible, to break it down even more specific. How do I not take damage in these fights? Because that's the problem. How do I not get tired? Okay, we need to up my strength and conditioning. I'm getting smitted. Okay, we need to start working on my jiu-jitsu. So I just broke it down individually and started knocking those goals out a little bit at a time, and stopped looking at the top of Mount Everest and saying, I just want to get up there. Well, there's a lot of shit that has to happen before you can climb to the summit of Mount Everest. So that's step 1. Obviously, there's a lot of other problems. You're going to run into things. Some of those goals are not going to happen as quickly as you want them to. Some of them you're going to achieve, and then you're going to fail after that, and you're going to get checked back down, and you're going to have to do it again. So that was my step one, was stop looking at the peak and the summit of wherever I'm trying to climb and figure out the tiny rungs of those ladders to get there.
In a digital course I created, I made about a 70-page workbook about this topic, about to answer 3 questions, which for some people they think that's a little boring. I wouldn't pay a nickel for their future, because they don't care about their own life enough to set those goals precisely.
Right.
And those 3 questions are just simply what kind of man am I, or what kind of person am I? And I'm not politically correct at all. I'm just saying that I have women in my audience too. So what kind of person am I? What kind of life do I want to live? Who would be the right companions, the best companions for that life? And those aren't noble questions,
Right.
Those aren't necessarily, you answer that in a fluffy, pretty way. It's like, no, what sort of beast, what sort of creature am I? What sort of life do I want to live, given that nature about oneself? Which might not be flattering, might not be what your mommy or whoever else wants to think about you, but who are you really? What do you really want?
Well, and those answers can be as deep or as shallow as you want them to be, depending on what you're trying to do.
The people that take the time to answer those 3 questions, they universally write me thank you emails. I get dozens every week. They universally write me thank you. That helped me focus in on this and accomplish this. Helped me focus in on that and accomplish this, and now I think I can do this now. So the people that actually take the time to do that, they send me beautiful emails. And the people that don't, you never heard from them because they're just fumbling around, see where life takes them. I don't think you could have the best possible outcomes without a serious goal. And then those micro goals, the way you and I might use different words to describe it, but same principle.
It's the same thing. Yeah,
same principle. So you start filling in those voids then in early stages, or filling in those voids of how to be a better striker, how to defend yourself against submissions better, how to do submissions probably, etc. And how did that change in your results when you start getting serious about goals and focusing in on those more micro details? What happened to your results and your confidence after that?
Well, oddly enough, setting those goals by themselves made my life better. Like, before we even get to the technical skills and abilities and what it did for my career, it made my life better, because I instead of having this, again, I talk about the summit all the time, but instead of just staring up at this, thing that's so far away that I don't know how to get to, that inherently leaves you kind of fumbling around a little bit. You don't really have a direction, because you can walk a mile in either direction and you're no closer to the top. So that's kind of what I was doing up to that point. Once I started having those I guess those checkpoints, those smaller goals, maybe those more attainable ones, it seemed to give a little more purpose to my life, because I think there's some confidence that comes along with, and I think some of it's bullshit and some of it's necessary, but there's some confidence with meeting goals, even if they're small and maybe they're easier to attain. You just get you get some confidence from that. You get some.
I think it's the very root of self-esteem. How could a person feel confident about themselves if they weren't competent at something?
Right.
If you didn't have the competency to accomplish something or to perform a task consistently, a person shouldn't have the right. They don't. A person doesn't have the right to feel confident about themselves if they can't do anything well. So I think that's the very root of self-esteem, of setting a goal and accomplishing that, and then you have the audacity to set a little bigger one.
Right, and then you feel good about yourself, and it's the reason that I dress the way that I dress. It's the reason I like to wear nice shoes. If you feel good, you're just going to be good. And as you're accomplishing those goals, you start to feel better about yourself. Well, the better you feel about yourself, we talked a little bit about just a small bit about my upbringing and the things that I went through. Didn't always feel good about myself. So then you start to feel good about yourself, and then you get a little confidence, and you get a swag about yourself a little bit. And even though they're small goals, God damn it, at the time, they're important to me. Excuse me, they were important to me. And that's how it started. So then your life started to get a little bit better. Purpose means something. And I had a purpose, and I hadn't had one up to that point. I knew that I wanted to be successful. I didn't know necessarily what that meant, but I had a purpose, and I felt value. And again, fortunately, I've been so blessed to have people around me that, even earlier on, the regular Joes that have fantastic souls. They're just good people. And, you know, nobody knows their name even to this day, but those are people that I hold very dear because those are the ones that helped me a lot. So, and then as I went on, I started to be successful. I started winning fights. You know, you feel good getting your hand raised, even if it's in some shit barn in Iowa or some strip club or you know, it's for no money and no one actually gives a shit. But I felt good because it feels good to win. And you just want that feeling. You know what I mean?
I don't, whenever you say you want to fight in a strip club, I think is somehow it makes me giggle inside. And you know, I gave
Club Myth in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's no longer open. It was fantastic though.
Sincere thought. Right out the window is Sapphire just over here.
Okay.
And they have I don't give a shit about strip clubs. I always had pretty girls in my life, despite being fat or grumpy or whatever else I am. I could always have a pretty girl, no problem. But I had to do a talk once. There's like a auditorium type thing over there. It's not huge, but there's like a showroom that maybe there's like 150 seats or something.
Yeah.
And I did a talk on the stage over there at Sapphire. And when you talk about you know, winning a fight there, it's somehow that keeps flashing in my head of me on stage at a strip club, and you know, they have these big cushy chairs. Mm-hmm. There's people in back. There's like a bar in the back where it's like noisy. Mm-hmm. That you're doing like a public talk / sales event, right? And it's noisy. There's like bar sounds of clinking glasses and ice and like, you know,
in the middle of your talk.
And then and you're, you know, it's people are out partying late because it's Vegas, and then they're showing up to your talk and they're tired and they're in these cushy chairs and they're literally falling asleep in the room. It was the worst. You know, if I with that number of people in the audience, if I did a public talk where there was a sales component to it, I'd expect to have, you know, $100,000, $175,000 in sales. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, maybe we did 40, something like that, because it was such a terrible environment. Right. It was such a terrible, it's dim.
Yeah, it's dark. It's a hard place to sell things.
When you keep saying this, strip club you mentioned a couple times, having to fight in that environment.
I fought there a couple times. More than probably 2 or 3 times. It was a cool environment though. It really was, you know, like, looking back on it, I'm really fortunate that it happened. But just at the time, I remember thinking, what in the hell am I doing? Like, I'm fist fighting people for money in a strip club, and the ring girls are working. So it's, you know, whoever the ring girl is the girl that's not dancing for someone in another room. It's the atmosphere was cool though. Like it had this kind of this bowl in the middle of it, and it had this catwalk around the top, and the cage was set down into the bowl. So it was like this real Fight Club feel, and like people were just standing around this balcony that was just a little bit higher than the top of the cage. Man, I would go back and do that again, just for the experience, you know, just how cool it felt. But at the time, it was like, what in the hell is happening here?
What kind of money were you making at that point in your career?
Oh, maybe $500.
Yeah,
maybe $500. Maybe $1,000 to win. I think my pro debut. I made really good money for that show in the area that I was in, and I think I made $2,000 to win. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand that the fight game is so tough that even if you win, you might not make enough money to cover some medical bills. You know?
Yeah, no, not even anywhere close. And some of those shows didn't even. You know, one of the biggest things back then was when the athletic commissions required the promoters to carry health insurance for the fighters. But up until that point, you know, you'd make $500 and you'd have a $10,000 hospital bill. You know, It was people were losing their asses and bankrupting themselves to do this.
I had a guy try to mug me once, and I don't have the right type of personality that I'm going to hand somebody my wallet. It just don't sit well with me, you know. And so he had a altercation about that, and. You know, but at the end of that, there's no winner here. I'm not saying that because it's cool, or I'd rather the whole thing never happened, you know. Mm-hmm. And I can say, cool, I kept my wallet. I still have the same wallet right here years later. I still have the same watch I was wearing at the time. But, you know, I also paid over $4,000 in dental bills to fix 2 broken teeth. Mm-hmm. I also had, hit my clothes ruined. I had blood from my mouth down to my ankles. Mm-hmm. Got a permanent scar here and inside my lip. And, my one ankle, I twisted my ankle in the mix of this, and my ankle hurt for like 11 months. Like actually for 11 months, it just hurt before it was like normal again. And today I'm still like a little careful doing like calf raises or something that I feel like it would never be as strong as the original angle, you know?
Yeah.
So there's no winner.
There's no winners there.
There's no winner there. So I think about, a few $1,000s in medical bills. I didn't even go to a doctor. I just went to a dentist, so I never got an x-ray or anything else. But you could easily have, $10,000, $20,000 in medical expenses. Easy.
Yeah. Happens fast. Yeah. To make no money. Maybe you lose and, maybe you never make it and you never make that back. That's the risk that we all take.
I've seen some guys that I think that, fighting was kind of like therapy for them, It helped them be more mature, help them stay out of trouble, oddly enough, to be able to fight in, in a sanctioned,
I'm that guy.
Professional spot. Yeah. How do you think about that?
I think that, I think it takes a certain type of person to be competitive at this level.
You're ranked number 4 right now in the UFC 205.
Yeah.
What are you walking around at, 235 or so?
Yeah, right about 235 right now. Yeah. I think for me, and I think my story is very similar. Maybe the details are different, but I think the idea is the same. I think some people are just different. I think they're just built differently. And I think sometimes those people don't necessarily always fit in to a box in society. And I think that this is one place where we can be ourselves. And I think the people that get addicted to being in those fights, I love fighting. I love winning. I love everything that comes along with that. I love everything about it. But what I love the most is the actual act of fighting. Lots of people like winning. Everyone likes to win. Everyone likes to compete and be successful and be better at something than someone else, especially in those kind of one-on-one situations. There's not a lot of people out there that genuinely enjoy the actual act of fighting. We both watched Court McGee fight last night. Court McGee actually enjoys the act of fighting, the punches, the kicks, the wrestling, taking and receiving. There's not anywhere else I can get that.
But no, I was in the front row for that fight, and I've seen Court on TV before. I never saw him in real life at a fight. And what really struck me about him, the guy's just calm, And I made a comment. I had a couple of my clients with me on my left and right. We had a big couch in the front row, and I made a comment to them. I'm like, look at this guy. Is he just calm? Between rounds, he's calm. He's not trying to hype himself up. He's not trying to tell himself some bullshit. Like it's a real professional that, when I see a guy. You might have a much more robust take on this, but when I see a guy that's trying to hype himself up or he needs a lot of hype men around him, I'm like, does he believe he's supposed to win this fight? Because a lot of the biggest things in my life that when I had a big victory at something, I was very well prepared. I thought about it for years ahead of time. I've been in similar situations dozens of times, and I'm just very calm. And I think that's given me a significant advantage in some tumultuous times that other people would panic, and you're calm. Yeah. It's a hell of an advantage. I don't want to take away from the main thought you had. That's
also a man that is in a place where he's very comfortable. That's a guy that, watching Court McGee in there, it's an inspiring thing for me. A guy that's at his age that's had the miles he's had, the miles that he had in life before he even got to the octagon. His drug addiction that he does a lot of, he does a lot of traveling. He does a lot of, public speaking engagements where he's speaking to 100,000 people at a time, about, his issues with addiction and how he came through it. A guy that's so comfortable in chaos, after everything he's been through is super inspiring to me. So, just seeing, the calm that you talk about, that's a guy that, like we talked about earlier, is in a place he's very happy to be in. But he's also been in a lot of really, really bad situations before. He's had a lot of loss. And so this fight game stuff is, it's a way to, I think that, I'm trying to remember who said it, but one of Chris Weidman's coaches says it a lot, that you find out who you really are when you're in the octagon and you're kind of deep in those really bad situations. And sometimes you don't like who that is. And sometimes you really enjoy who that is and you want to continue to do it. And I think that that's my experience. I think that it's the one place that I can just be whoever the hell I actually am on the inside. I think that's a similar experience the Court has. And I think that's what keeps bringing me back.
When we talked about that therapy element, or, how, doing something you love or having the, like tough moments helps you find, who you really are. And I hear you. Sometimes, you're not going to like who that is.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you might be very proud of yourself, that you feel a sense of pride or a deep respect for yourself, that a normal person who hasn't had, similarly tough circumstances, that they couldn't possibly know that about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thinks they're a tough guy until they get into a really bad situation.
Right.
Everybody thinks, a lot of these people want a lot of lip service of,
Mm-hmm.
they're such a noble character, and they want to give and help. They haven't done shit in their life,
Right.
but they want to help everybody. And they're, all these noble ideas with no foundation or no backbone behind them. When you're in some of those tough spots, it's, like you said, sometimes it's not going to be flattering, but sometimes it's you have the most, I'm trying to say it the right way, but the most deep respect for yourself, or the most deep sense of legitimate pride, not cocky pride or hubris, but you're just
Right.
I am a tough man, or I am a good man, or
Mm-hmm.
whoever you want to think about, whatever the words might be in your head, that when you get tested in another situation in life later, and you have those reference points in your head of like,
Right.
no, I dealt with this, I dealt with this, I dealt with this. I had these couple experiences that I'm not proud of, and I'm not going to repeat in life, but that doesn't take away, I am this kind of man. I am
Mm-hmm.
this kind of man. I am this kind of man. And for some of those, if I went back earlier in my life of like, I was 18 years old, fresh out of county jail for the second time. And I was never there for drugs or stealing or shit like that. I was there for, I mentioned it. I'd been stabbed when I was a teenager, and I had a situation where a young man, again, different guy, was approaching me with a knife in his hand. And, I was the sort of fella and was around the sort of fellas that were used to having guns around. And I didn't mean to shoot. I didn't shoot the guy. I didn't mean to shoot the guy, but easily could have if I wanted to.
Right.
I just fired a couple shots, near him to
Right.
let him think about the decision that he was going to make next,
Right.
So it's frowned upon. Funny thing, it's frowned upon in my community to shoot guns.
Yeah, people don't like that.
But when I thought about, I was sitting around and I was watching all these idiots in county jail, and the games that are played there,
Mm-hmm.
it's a series of buffooneries where people just telling bigger lies all day long about, who they are, what they're up to, or what they're about to do, And I thought, man, this is fucked. And I was the youngest one there. And I just lay around and read books. I was always a nerdy type of guy that I wanted to learn stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I always wanted to learn something. And even when I was kicked out of school for some deviancy or fighting or something, I'd be at home like watching a documentary or reading books even when I was suspended.
Right.
So it's a weird childhood. But, that I got a job, which I hadn't had before that, because I was just hanging out with a bunch of street kids doing street kid things, And I got a job at Walmart, and I laugh about this sometimes, that I'm not proud of it, but I lied on my application twice. I don't like to lie. As I got older and more mature, I like being myself.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people don't like that, and I don't give a fuck. I don't
Right.
necessarily need to be friends with those people, but I generally like myself. So I just kind of front load my personality, and somebody's going to love it or not so much. And it's great
Mm-hmm.
at sorting mechanism. But at this time, I was 18, and I lied on an application to get a job at Walmart. And I had to say that I was a high school graduate, and also that I had no criminal record. Now, when I went back the second time, I didn't have to go back to jail, but I had a felony charge that they reduced to a misdemeanor. I had two felonies. They threw one away. Second one got reduced to a misdemeanor. So I went back into jail for 10 weeks in exchange for not having a felony record as an adult. So I don't have any adult felonies, There's that one misdemeanor conviction. But nonetheless, get a job at Walmart. Had to say that, no criminal record and high school graduate, which, both of those things were false at the time. And when I walked in there, I was unloading trucks and stocking shelves, which was not the, this is not the peak moments of my life.
That's not the gig to have.
It wasn't my best year in life. And I thought to myself, there's people here that are in their 30s, 40s, 50s unloading these trucks here. There's some people in their 60s that are here stocking shelves. And I thought, if I don't out hustle, nobody here planned to be in that spot, I'm like, if I can't out hustle every person here, there's no reason to think that I wouldn't be in that same spot later in life,
Right.
And there's plenty of people that have been there. I got nothing against Walmart, by the way, But there's plenty of people that have been there 10, 20, 25 years, and they're just doing the same damn thing.
Right.
So that really was a wake up to me. That was more of a wake up call than going to jail itself. I thought to myself, if I can't outwork these people, maybe I belong here. So that was really like, it made me compete with myself to like, I got to do a little better every day. I got to learn my manager's job. I got to learn their manager's job. And, it set me on that track to be, don't take your break, just keep your work momentum, get more done than other people, don't complain, get shit done.
Right.
And that helped me a lot later in life, but it wasn't a happy moment.
No.
It wasn't a happy time.
No, I have a very similar experience. When I got in that trouble with the car accident, I was fighting at the time. Obviously wasn't good. It wasn't doing well, but I had an alcohol monitor put on my ankle for a while. It's very similar to a house arrest monitor. Again, I was 20, 21. And so I had to go, get a real job for a while because I was in a lot of trouble. So I got a job at a meatpacking plant and I was working third shift. It was overnights.
Yeah.
And I can't, it was freezing, it's like 33 degrees in there all the time because of all the raw meat and just the smell of, even to this day, the smell still bothers me. Like I'm not a weird guy with raw meat or anything like that, but the smell immediately takes me back to being in that meatpacking plant. And I remember thinking, like seeing one of my coworkers, it turned out to be a good friend, was out on parole. He had done 10 years in feds for drugs and I met him there working, and fantastic guy, had really turned his life around. But this was his winning. Like I remember him he was so excited about this job. He was making better money they would make, whether it was doing fast food or, some other things. It was like $14 or $15 an hour at the time. And he was doing well on parole. He was staying clean. He found a girl that he liked. He'd been hanging out with, he'd been spending time with his kid. Then he hadn't been doing a lot of this stuff, before he went to prison. So, I remember one, being happy for him, but two, realizing that there's everything in life it's all your perception. Like I was in the worst place I'd ever been in my whole life. And I hated every second of it. But this guy he was so happy to be there. He was happy to be working. People talked to him. He felt like he had a lot of value to his life because he had been there a while. He was really good at his job. He was kind of running shit back there. And I remember thinking like, this might be his dream, but this is not mine. Like, I don't want to be here very long. Which takes me to my second, worst moment of my life, those three crossroads that I talk about a lot. I'd met my wife, and she was pregnant. We hadn't known each other very full disclosure. We hadn't known each other very long. She ends up pregnant. We're having a daughter. She was about 8 months pregnant at this time. And, just things were, again, like I was doing okay. Like I was figuring it out. It wasn't happening fast. I think I had just gotten signed to Strike Force or was about to be signed. So I was winning and I was figuring those small goals out, and like, I just wasn't where I needed to be. Like it was barely paying our bills. We were, using credit cards and borrowing money from people and just doing anything I could do to make it. But like, we could barely feed ourselves. So I remember pulling into it's a place in Omaha. It's called Bag and Save. It's just a grocery store. And it's like 8 o'clock at night and we're hungry and neither one of us have any money. And so we're scrounging for change to buy spaghetti. And because spaghetti is fairly cheap, noodles are cheap, meat sauce is pretty cheap. So we scrounge enough. You can eat off of it for a couple of days. And we scrounge all this money and we pull into the parking lot. And I am too embarrassed to go in with her. Like I just couldn't bring myself to do it. It's a terrible moment in my life. And I was such a fucking coward. I sent my now wife, at the time girlfriend, 8 months pregnant, into a grocery store to pay for spaghetti with nickels and dimes and quarters because I was too embarrassed to go in with her. And that's like probably the most embarrassed I've ever been, for sure. And that's the moments that I'll never go back to. So like that Cargill moment was, I remember thinking, I'll never fucking do this again. I'm going to get out of here somehow. I'm going to get out of here. And then I did. And, you know, I was better, but I wasn't where I needed to be. And then, you know, that's where I talked about sometimes you start to achieve those goals and then you get knocked back down. Like I was knocked back down in that parking lot of the grocery store. And I think those are crossroads. You can say, fuck it, I'm never going to do it. And you can go back to Cargill and get a steady paycheck and make okay money enough to at least feed yourself. There's a lot of people that support their families on those salaries. I'm not knocking that at all. There's a lot of people that live really good lives doing that. It's just, that was the moment I could have went back to Cargill and done that thing where I'm just going to work and forget the goals and forget the dreams and all this other stuff that I've been working on. And then that was, you know, I had a choice to make at that point in time. It was a terrible fucking time. It was awful.
I hate to do this to you, but you told me there's 3 moments and you gave me 2. So now I got to ask you for the third one.
Jon Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Jon Jones. So Jon Jones was the, you know, that's a fast forward from that parking lot grocery store. But that was another one of those moments where you can go one way or the other. I think Calvin Kattar had one most recently in his fight where you can fall back, you can fall forward. You know, you're going to get better from it, or you're going to get worse, and that's what happened in the fight with Jon Jones. I brought a small percentage of my capabilities and skills to that fight, and sometimes that's just the fight game, you know, and that's the beauty in it. But that's also the curse that. The best guy doesn't always win. And B, you don't always bring your best product to the table. And a lot of times it's at no fault of your own. It's some days you wake up and you just don't have it. And sometimes you just slip on a banana peel and whether it's the moment or just the day. And it's hard to be perfect every single day. And you never know when you're not going to be. So I just had one of those moments where I didn't get a fair shake at it, in my opinion. I didn't. I
haven't seen the fight, and some of my audience may or may not have. But I'm gonna go back and look at it now that we're talking about it. But I haven't seen the fight. What happened there?
I don't know. I just didn't show up. I didn't show up. I think I expected. You know, Jon Jones is the greatest mixed martial artist that we've ever seen. I think I expected him to be better. And I just didn't. He didn't do a lot of the stuff I expected him to do. I've been chasing this monster my whole career, and then when I got there, there wasn't a monster, and I think it threw me off. He did a good job neutralizing me. He didn't hurt me. I don't necessarily think he beat me. He just stopped me from beating him. You know, I got neutralized, and it was just a tough moment. Because had I gone in, I guess for your viewers and listeners, you go back and watch my fight with Glover Teixeira. The fight doesn't bother me at all, and he beat me from pillar to post after the second round. He had people in the crowd and the announcers and Dana White begging my team to stop the fight. I've never had a beating like that. There's not too many times I've ever seen anybody get a beating like that. And that doesn't bother me even a little bit because
just for anybody that doesn't know, at the moment we're talking here, Glover is the current champion. Mm-hmm. Jon Jones is the long reigning champion. Mm-hmm. You know, 20 some wins, 1 loss.
Yeah, they're the two best guys in the world. They're the two best guys in the world. And that Glover fight doesn't bother me at all because whatever circumstances were going on in my life, I'll never make an excuse. Glover beat me fair and square. I'm better than that. And then that's okay. But I gave everything I had to give. I did everything I could possibly do to win. I gave max effort. I never gave up on myself. I stood up and faced a storm that 99.9% of UFC fighters, not just humans walking the earth, the toughest, grittiest, baddest motherfuckers on the planet, 99.9% of those people wouldn't have got up off that stool every single time I did. And I'm very proud of that. So I'm okay with that. Loss happens and it doesn't always go your way. It's what you do after that, and it's how you feel about yourself afterwards. I was fine with it. It just wasn't my night. I'll get that one back, and I'm okay with that. So But the Jon Jones thing was different. I didn't empty the tank, and I didn't give everything I had. I just didn't give myself a chance to win. And that one bothers me, not because of the loss. It's because of my performance in the loss. And then that's where that crossroad happens. You see a lot of guys get to titles, whether that's, I don't even want to just say titles. You see a lot of guys get their opportunity, guys or girls, whether it's sports or business or life or career or whatever, they get the opportunity to get to the pinnacle and get everything that they've ever wanted. And then they don't. It goes one of two ways. You're either more motivated by it because you didn't get it, and you're going to fix the problems that got you in that situation, and it's going to motivate you more, or you see people fall off. So you see a lot of former title challengers, whether it's boxing or the UFC or whatever it is, they get there once, and then you never see them get back to it again because it was too much for them to lose. And I think some of it's fear of losing again. I think some of it is maybe it wasn't worth it. Maybe it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. And then they kind of fade off into, obscurity. So that was my moment, and that was my third and final kind of crossroads in life. And I followed it up 8 weeks later by beating the number one guy in the world and putting myself right back into contention. And that feeling motivated me. And I think some of it is just who I am as a person, like in here. It wasn't a hard decision for me to make. I was already close. And
who was number one at that time?
Alexander Gustafsson.
Gotcha.
Yeah, in his hometown in Stockholm, Sweden. So that was the and that was the one time that the home run. Man. Yeah, that was the one time the home run mentality worked for me. Where okay, I just lost to Jon. I'll get the next best guy. I'm gonna swing for the fences and make it all go away.
Now, you beat some previous champions as well. There's some really tough guys. What's a tidbit that you could share that's maybe not only personal to you, but you think is applicable to others you're in a tough situation, and what's the internal psychology note that makes that big difference? Now that you've had these experiences that have gone well and not so well or not as planned, key moment you're fighting for the title or fighting a former champion. What's the note you have to make to yourself? What's the note you would tell others here that that important moment in your day, that important moment in your life, what kind of headspace does a person have to be in to be successful in those times?
I'm going to take a risk here and give my very honest opinion on something that I think has been one of the most important lessons I've ever learned, but it's not going to be well received by everybody.
Perfect.
It starts off with, I've said this several times at youth prisons and programs for fathers that are trying to work their way back into society. No one actually gives a fuck about you. They genuinely, generally, there's people that are close to you that care, but generally, the world doesn't give a fuck about you. And people have this misconception that if they're going to be successful or they're going to do these great things, that people are going to care. No one cares. Yeah. They really don't. Everyone's doing their own thing. And if you're doing it to try to impress people, you're gonna find yourself in a really bad situation because you're gonna figure out at the worst time that no one cares. So that's kind of my generality as far as that's my generalization of just no one actually gives a fuck about you. So you have to worry about yourself for sure. But I think people want to feel really good while they're going through these tough situations. They're looking for some guru or some person or some program or somebody to make them feel good while they go through hell. And that's not how it works. It's almost as if people think, I need to feel really good about what I'm doing so that I can keep continuing to go through the fire. And that's not how it works. People talk about confidence and they talk about motivation, and you don't need to be confident to do the fucking work. You don't need to have the motivation. And motivation and confidence are just words. I don't really believe they're real things. I'm sure that there's some data or there's some feeling behind that maybe is real, but those words I'm not really tied to.
When I hear motivation, I find this extraordinarily annoying. So I got 3.7 million followers on Instagram at the moment. And I get constant messages. You're you're a motivational coach. And no, I'm not. I don't want one client. I don't want fans. I don't give a shit about fans. A fan means like fanatic, which means like some stalker or weirdo dude that like doesn't know who you are, doesn't even think you're a person. He doesn't even think you're like a real human.
Right.
It's like has some weird abstraction in there. I don't want fans. I want high quality clients that are people that I would respect, people that I'd enjoy spending time with. I want high quality friends, high quality clients. I don't want any fans. Couldn't give a shit less about a fan. Right? And then this motivation thing. This, you're a motivational coach. I'm not a motivational coach. If you're not already motivated, they're not qualified to work with me.
Right.
I don't want to work with. I can't be responsible. I'm not always motivated, but at times I'm not motivated. If I'm working towards a goal, then you have to be disciplined.
100%.
Most of the time, I'm not motivated. I don't want to fucking sleep 3 hours and get up and go do tough shit all day. But I'm like, well, the success gods don't give a shit what I feel like.
Right.
Those are literally my self-talk. Those are the words in my head. It's like, well, the money gods don't care what I feel like, but they do care about the outcomes I create today. The success gods, they don't care what I feel like today, but they do care about the outcomes that I create today. So that's how I think about some of those things. I'm not here to motivate anybody.
You say it better than I do, but that's 100%. You're less abrasive maybe about it at points, but that's essentially people reach out to me all the time on social media. What's your motivation? Like, who gives a fuck? It doesn't matter. Like, do the work and show up when you show up every single day and put in max effort and be disciplined and do what you're supposed to do. But the motivation thing and the feeling good about it, you're not always going to feel good about what you're doing. You're not going to wake up in the morning and be, man, I cannot wait to just work super hard today and bust my ass and I'm going to be working towards this goal. Like, are there days that happens? Sometimes you wake up and you just feel good. But a lot of times you got a lot of shit going on. I got kids and I got a wife and I got a house and I got a radio show and I got to work the desk and I got to study this. And at the same time, I still have a fight career. So I still have to train and I got to there's some days I don't feel like getting punched in the face. Like
Shocking.
there's sometimes I
think the audience finds that relatable.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't want to get up at 7 a.m. and be punched in the face by 8:30. Like some days I'm not feeling it, and there's some days, you're more willing to be a part of that, but it's not like that every day. So what's my motivation? It's the outcome. That's what I'm going towards. There's a goal. So I need to win this fight because I have other goals that are predicated on me winning this fight. So that means I have to get up at 7. I got to drive to the gym and I have to stay away from my family during my training camp. I miss my kids. I miss my wife. I miss sleeping in my own bed. Like, I hate all of that. There's no motivation that comes along with that. It all sucks. It's all pain and suffering. And I hate every second of it, but it's the discipline. You just have to do it. And I think that's probably the one thing that I learned the hard way along the way is that there's no way that you're supposed to feel. There's no one gives a fuck how you feel. No one cares about you. You just have to do it anyways. Like, it's like people can't start. Like, they have this goal, but they can't start the goal until they feel right about it. And you just have to do it anyways. Like, that's how it is. It's like scooping snow in the Midwest. Like, can't wait till it's warm before you scoop snow. It doesn't work like that. Like, it's fucking cold and you have to go do it. And that's how it is.
I grew up in Illinois, so we grew up on separate sides of Iowa. But I find that relatable and humorous.
Yeah.
That you can't wait till it's warm. You got to go do it at the time that's necessary,
do it in the cold when it matters.
Or you can't go anywhere. I think a really a key note you hit. I want to say 10 things, but a really key note that you hit that. Everybody wants to have a top spot at something, It's an easy thought. So, I want to be the best at it. And, there's a difference between a dream versus a goal. And people on the internet, they want to talk in nice, fluffy words. They want everything to sound nice and sound pretty. And that's just not been my experience. The tougher, the things that I'm most proud of in my life, it wasn't always pretty, man. It wasn't always easy, pretty. I didn't have the best internal self-talk in my mind while I was going through some of those experiences. And, for 15, I wasn't always this cheery and lighthearted. I wasn't always so cheery. So, earlier in life, I said a lot of mean things to myself. So, when I wasn't motivated, I said, yeah, but I'm also not a bitch. And, I don't feel like doing stuff. Yeah, well, the money gods don't care about my feelings. So, Do I want to embrace my feelings right now, or do I want to go do something that's going to help me provide for myself and my girlfriend and the people I care about in the world?
I've negative talked myself while still doing it.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to make it. You're probably not going to fucking make it. It's not going to happen. But I'm still putting one foot in the front of the other, headed that direction. And then you get there, you're like, holy shit, I made it. Look at that. That's weird.
was about your age. You're 33 right now?
33.
Yeah, I'm 42. And I was about your age by the time I could I had a good separation or like a good compartmentalization. I didn't have that at all through my 20s at all. I just the thought I had in my head is, are you behaving like a champ or a chump right now? Meaning, am I engaging in a behavior that would lead to a champion type outcome or a success in a goal? Or am I engaging in a behavior that would lead to just some mediocre shit, just some average chump outcome?
Right.
And I was cruel about that. I was very mean to myself about it. And I think it was the right thing, honestly. Now, I found better tools later.
Right.
Where now I can say, I'm like, you know what, dude, you got a fucking really long track record. You're going to go do the thing anyway. Like now I trust myself. If I set a goal, I'm reluctant to set a goal. When I set a goal, I know I'm going to commit to that. And I'm a very obsessive type person. Like I can only focus on about 2 real things at the same time.
Right.
But if I focus on those couple of things, I'm going to do it. And I know I'm going to do it. And I'm not chubby because I'm lazy. I'm chubby because I had different goals of, I made a lot of money. I went to the right schools. I did, numerous other things that I'm proud of, but helped a lot of friends and clients make money and have a lot of financial freedom in their lives. I'm not chubby because I'm lazy. I'm chubby because that wasn't my priority, and I was willing to sacrifice that while accomplishing other things. But yeah, when I put something in my head that I'm going to do something, I know I'm going to do it, and I don't give a shit about how I feel about it. I'm not. When some dude tells me, like an adult man or what should be an adult woman tells me about my feelings, like I don't give a fuck about your feelings. I tell that to anybody that works with me. So I don't give a shit how you feel.
Right.
Don't tell me about your fucking feelings. I don't give a shit how I feel.
Right. If you want, so I definitely don't care how you feel.
I don't care how I feel about it. I'm going to get up every day and go do the thing that I've been doing this for years. I got a track record. I'm doing this. So now my brain, this helped me. It might help you. This helped me is that I'm going to do the goddamn thing anyway. If I set a goal, I'm doing it. And I trust myself. I have a long history of that behavior. I trust myself. I know if I'm bullshitting myself. Am I going to do the thing? Am I committed to the thing? And then here's the profound thought that shouldn't be very profound, honestly, but it was to me. Profound thought, like, well, if I'm going to do the thing anyway, I might as well be in the best mood that I could possibly be in without violating the rules of doing the thing, without lying to yourself, without starting to let a little lie or a little bullshit or a little softness creep in. So you might as well be in the best mood possible without contradicting reality, without starting to lie to yourself. And that helped me a lot, actually. That might seem like I'm a little embarrassed to say that, but that helped my life a lot.
I don't think you should be. My wife says something. She's a hard ass, man. She gives no fucks about how I feel. And I think she's been the best thing that's ever happened to me, as far as my mindset and just, accomplishing my own shit. Because she is a hard ass. But the one thing that she said, so I do my training camps in Denver. I guess for people that don't know, I live in Omaha, Nebraska, but I do my training camps in Denver. So 7, 8, 9 weeks.
Is that Trevor's camp or somebody else?
No, Mark Montoya, Factory X. Trevor's fantastic though. Really good guy. So I'm, Monday through Friday, I'm in Denver. I fly home on the weekend, see my family and kids. So the travel starts to wear on me. And typically the first couple weeks are miserable because I'm not in the flow of being out of town and away from my family for so long. And I'm almost purposely not allowing myself to enjoy it. Because there's some guilt that comes along with that. There's, I'm missing things and I know my family misses me and I know that me being gone makes it harder on them a little bit. So I almost don't allow myself to enjoy it. So it's again, it comes back to like, I have to do this. This is the means to an end. This is the part of the goal. This is what I have to do. But I don't have to like it, but I have to do it. So, but she said to me, if you're going to be there, at least try to enjoy. Like people will be like, hey, you want to go out to dinner? You want to, after practice, you want to go hit some golf balls, or whatever. And I was like, no, I'm not here to have fun. You know what I mean? Like I'm here to accomplish a goal and that's it. And, my wife started telling me, she's like, you're going to drive yourself crazy if you don't allow yourself to enjoy it a little bit. Like find some way to essentially be in the best mood that you possibly can if you're going to do it anyways. Like, you're going to do the damn thing. Try to figure out a way to enjoy it. And that's helped me a lot. At least being away, in those first couple of weeks before I kind of get in the flow and the vibe of being out of town. And then I kind of just get into autopilot, and it is what it is. But I think that's a valuable point, that you're going to do it anyways. You got to try to find a way to, every day's not going to be like that.
It's not you or me, man, but that we had a different path. But a lot of people out there, when they hear that, then they immediately start inserting some bullshit, and they start making excuses and rationalizations to not actually do what they're supposed to do.
Right.
That's the dangerous line there, that like,
right. I'm not going out and partying and missing practices. You know what I mean? It's you gotta stay focused. But if you can stay focused and discipline, I think discipline is one of the most important words when it comes to life in general. But you can do that, and I'm not saying don't enjoy yourself. You know what I mean? I think that sometimes it does get lost in my whole point when I'm saying, nobody cares and you don't have to feel good about it. I'm not saying that you're not allowed to feel good about it. I'm saying you're just not always going to. And I do think people get caught in that sometimes.
I think there's one more, maybe one of the last points we'll make, but a very fantastic one is nobody cares about your success. Mm-hmm. Like you got to do things, and you got to do things because you want to do them. And if I'm really honest with myself, that I'd like to say like, oh, I did everything for me. Everything is, it was important to me. And that's mostly true, which for most people, that'd be bullshit. For me, that's like 90% true, that like, I knew early on, I didn't like being poor. I didn't like being around a bunch of, dumb people. And that just, I don't know a nicer way to say it. I don't want to be around a bunch of misfits, making bad decisions, having terrible life outcomes, you know. So I'm like, well, I got to earn a better place in the world. And I didn't think that was going to be given to me, even in my most naive early life dream. I didn't think that was going to be given to me. I'm like, how do I earn a better spot? Like, what do I have to do to be qualified to have higher quality friends, higher quality mentors, teachers, et cetera. And so I was looking inside in an early age of like, read some books, watch a documentary, learn, if you learned more, you might earn more, that smart people tend to have better outcomes than dumb people, So if you're dedicated to a life of stupidity and it doesn't turn out well, all right, it's probably a correlation there. There might be a reason for that. So, but maybe the other 10%, I think everybody has some percentage of this. I think it was a low percentage for me relative to a lot of people, but maybe 10% of that is, I wanted the, esteem of other people, or, I wanted to be liked by a certain type of people. And I did really good at the things that I focused on. I wanted to go to a good business school. I went to the #1 business school in our country for graduate school. Out of 416, I went to the #1 program, which is very, the average person there has a genius level IQ. It's like they're not impressed with your genius level IQ there, like everybody does. So, that was good. Some of the things I'm much more proud of really were business accomplishments. That a lot of my classmates went there to go get a job,
Right.
I quit my last job when I was 19. I never had another job. So I just built businesses and, real estate related, looked at investing, made a lot of good decisions in, real estate and stock market investments. But man, if you're doing that thinking that somebody else cares or somebody else is going to be impressed, like nobody cares. No, what I learned about that? You might have a different take. Is anybody else that did something significant? You and I don't know each other for so long. It's our first time having a conversation on camera. But I feel like we know each other quite well. And I sense that from you, that we had enough shared stories, or enough, wins and losses in different areas in life that we were relatable to one another.
Right.
So I think that's the thing that I got from that is nobody gives a shit that you're like, the people that cheer your name aren't going to be your best friend,
Right.
But the struggles that you have to go through to go be somebody, to do something, other people who went through that path, they'll find you relatable. You'll be able to, that'll be your only real friends, because of other people who haven't done that, haven't gone through their version of that journey. They're not going to find you relatable anymore. So you will have friends that are, if you make a path that you're going to be more wealthy, more famous, etc. I don't give a shit about me. I still don't want to be famous. I want to make money and help like people I care about.
Right.
I don't want to help everybody. I don't want to save the world. I don't want to save the dolphins.
Right.
I want to help a few thousand people that are kind of my type of people.
Right.
I want to have, very selfishly, I want to have like sincere friendships and relationships. I don't make a lot of friends. People I'm friends with, a lot of them I've been friends for 5, 10, 15 years, So I'm a good long-term friend. I don't want any new friends that are just half. I want to spend time with people that I don't really like,
Right.
So I think those were some gifts that I got from that path that but
the visual I get from that,
shit.
the visual, sorry to cut you off, but the visual I get is I think people think when they get like super successful or they win at whatever they're trying to be at, it's almost like this Superman mentality where they're like standing at the top of the building with this cape and their fists on their hips. But then like everyone else who's successful is already there. And it's kind of like, okay, idiot, we get it. Us too. Sit down and shut up. And then then you're in your kind of group of people, but there's no like this aha moment. And I haven't even, whatever success looks like for me, I haven't gotten there yet.
We're both still young. We got a lot of fights.
Yeah, I got a lot of shit to do. And I think I have a whole nother career, I think those goals change too over time. Like the world title was that summit. And that's no longer what that is. That's now the one that's on the way to get where I actually want to be. And I think that's a natural evolution as you start to attain things and you start to climb. Like now it's not that far away. And that's not actually what I want anymore. Like I do want that, but I want that because I need that. And now that looks different. So now the world title is something I need to get to the next step. And then I think that's how just success in life happens. I don't think you ever reach it. Like I think you just keep moving the bar higher and then eventually you die. I think that's just how, I think like truly successful people, I think that's how it happens. I'm sure that success to you now probably looks much different than it did in your 20s. Like I'm sure you blew right by whatever that was in your 20s, right? Blew right by that and just kept raising that bar.
I say this in very
like I'm pumping gas just fine, and that at one point in time that was successful. I get groceries just fine. I don't worry about that at all, and so I blew right by that one, and it just keeps on going.
When I was 20 years old, if I could have thought I'd have 15% of my current financial circumstances and cool life experiences that I had, I would have signed a contract at age 20 if I could have got 15% of what I currently have.
And just stayed there.
Yeah, it was unimaginable to me at that age, and that's you'll find this relatable. But it's been an emotional idea, a scary idea in some ways, and an emotional idea that the main thought I want to say is this: is that if I would have set bigger goals, I wonder if I could have done even more. And, where I'm sitting here today, I'm over 50 million now, and I'm still 42 years old.
Jesus,
and
it's fantastic.
I think to myself, of like, well, if I would have set goals earlier now I knew I was going to get 10, 25 million. I knew I'd get 10 million. I knew it. And I knew it. Like I knew it in my heart, and like, I'd rather die than not get that. And in my head, I'm like, I'm going to go find 20, 25. And I believed that to be true, but it seemed like a reach. And I thought I might be older. And, you just chipped away for a long time. For me, I made my first entrepreneurial money when I was 7. And, I just kept chipping away at that. So it's 35 years ago,
I think that's a valid point. Do you know the owners of Leaf Filter?
No, I don't.
So I had a conversation with them one time. And it wasn't about anything. It was genuinely just a conversation. There was no goal in the conversation. And we're talking about kind of goal setting and, what's your plans. And, I love talking to people that are doing much better than me, just to try to steal a piece of their mindset and hopefully add it to my own. So I had this thing where essentially what he was saying is my goals weren't big enough. And that's kind of what you were talking about. Like maybe I'm not setting high enough goals. And they had this thing like a sales meeting with all their salespeople. And they were like, all right, we're going to set this goal. If you guys reach this goal, what do you want? And the people were like, we're never going to hit that goal. Like, that's impossible. And he said, okay, if you do, what do you want? And someone was like, jokingly, was like, we want an office dog. And he said, that's exactly what's wrong with all of you guys. I'll get you a dog right now. Like, that's pretty easy to do. Like, I can get you a dog. Someone in the back yells, we want a giraffe. And he was like, done. Just like right there. He was like, all right, done. You guys meet that goal. I'll get you guys a giraffe for the office. And it was just like this long ongoing joke, right? So then they're like, a couple months from the end of the year, and he says, "Oh fuck, they're gonna hit the goal, and now I have to find a giraffe." So he legitimately starts searching zoos, going all over the country, trying to purchase a giraffe for the office. Turns out you can't have a giraffe in the middle of Cleveland, but there is an actual giraffe.
City planners are no fun.
Right, there's an actual giraffe at a zoo outside of Cleveland. That is their giraffe.
Sponsored by
their office giraffe. Like they actually own it. They pay yearly to feed it and house it and take care of it. Like, and so like that always stuck out to me. Like my brain I was always reaching way further than maybe I needed to, but like that made me start thinking, maybe I'm not reaching far enough.
I have those thoughts. I have, success for me longer term is, I want to spend more time doing things that I want to do instead of making myself do hard things that I probably don't have. I don't need more hardcore financial goals. If I just do what I'm doing and maintain that on autopilot, I'm going to find a few $100 million. I'm going to find at least $300 million. That's really the new number in my head that I know in my heart I can do that.
Right.
And maybe I'm going to have $1 billion and maybe I'm not. And I don't know what the fuck else I'm going to buy with $1 billion that I couldn't have anything that I wanted,
right.
I have everything I want except like, I'd like to have a nice jet. I don't give a shit about a boat. And I got one of the most fabulous penthouses in the city I live in. I got anything I really want, I could go buy one,
Right.
So for me, I had to start setting new goals that I want to go, I need to have fitness goals, I need to lose about 30 pounds while I'm still at an age that, my body is going to cooperate and do that. So I started getting a lot more trainers, that had, fantastic, multi-time world champion coaches and trainers come work with me. And, that created an accountability mechanism that, there's a time recently where I had to work really hard. I slept about 4 hours on average for about 8 nights in a row. I didn't have to do that, but I made commitments and I didn't want to disappoint anybody.
Right.
And then I had, flight cancellation, rebooking twice in a week. So these things happened that's how it turned out. Well, at the same time, I had Mike Chandler scheduled to come over and we're going to train together for 3 days. So, when Mike comes over and I got, a bit of a sinus infection and I'm really sleep deprived, am I going to say, "Oh, hey, Mike, I'm a little tired." "Hey, Mike, I'm a little tired. Like, maybe I should take a nap, Mike, Am I going to say that or am I going to be like, all right, well, success gods don't care what I feel like, let me get throwing, single leg takedown, double leg takedown 150 times, regardless of what I feel like, So when you totally get that, but I had to create new types of accountability mechanisms that to be with people that I respect, that there's no way I'm going to disappoint or I'd feel embarrassed to come say,
right.
"Hey man, hey bro, like just chill today. Thanks for flying to my home.
Right.
Thanks for flying over here, spending 2.5 days away from your family, changing your life up for the week. Just chill though while I take a nap."
Yeah.
So you create mechanisms like that. Like, I train with these guys, like we'll get like 4 training sessions in 50 hours. So show up on a Tuesday. We'll train for a couple hours. We'll get 2 sessions in on Wednesday, a couple hours early in the day, a couple hours later, a couple more hours on Thursday before they fly out. And, on that 4th session, there's never a time where like, I'm like, after boxing for,
right.
you hit shit.
I can't wait to get there.
Yeah, I can't wait to go, have Paulie scream in my fucking face, hit the mats, punch through the pad, break his fucking teeth, push his nose through his skull. So, you got a multi-time world champion boxer training with you and like, all my hands sore, all my hands sore, all my knuckles really bruised, But now you're going to do the thing. So that created accountability mechanisms for me that I've got good at setting things up like that. But I'm shifting away from the idea of, money focused and be like, all right, like the point of getting some money was to have more freedom, So what are the things that are going to give you, that are still,
what are you going to do with your freedom?
Yeah. They're still goal oriented, that part of my brain is satisfied that I'm learning I have to learn things. I'm not the type of guy that wants to retire ever,
Right.
So I'd rather die, like I'm just going to work on a project till I'm dead because I can't help myself.
Right.
So, if I have a goal like that.
That's what I said too. You're just going to keep building those and then eventually you die.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah,
there's no end. There's no like end zone.
You did more stuff and had more fun than most people probably, Bob Dylan said, that it's a little hippie-ish for me, but Bob Dylan says, a guy wakes up in the morning, goes to sleep at night, and he says, what is success? And he says, success is when a guy wakes up in the morning and goes to sleep at night and does whatever he wants to during the day. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's not, I'm not the type of guy that's going to, chill and smoke weed or something. I got to go do something. I don't feel good about myself if I'm not learning something and doing something, So, but I just have to shift what that is. I have to shift that. And, that'll be better for my health. That'll be better for my, it'll be good for me for a lot of reasons, So I know that, my long-term outcomes are going to be fantastic because of it, but I'm at a little transition point psychologically from obsessing about, financial success versus, maintaining the things that are working well there.
Right.
But, they're getting my boxing skills up, getting my MMA skills up. And
I'm doing the opposite.
Being in better physical
I'm
condition.
using the boxing and MMA skills to try to find my financial freedom. I'm just doing it the opposite way.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot on camera right now. We're going to set up our schedule to go train together.
Let's do it.
And don't make me edit that out. So
no, I'm in.
They're going to, the same people that look at this are going to be watching us train together in the future over in Chicago. So we built a fantastic facility. I took that so seriously. I spent more than $2 million on training facilities in my office.
No shit.
So I have better than a professional gym. I have a fantastic professional gym. I have a room just for wrestling and grappling. I have a room just for boxing. And I destroyed several homes and reconfigured them in a building. So we have a studio there and a lot of training facilities. So,
no shit.
But I had to take it seriously. I wasn't going to do it. Mm-hmm. So I got to do something fully or I won't do it,
Right.
So I'd love to train together. I'd love to put in some time together. And I know there's a lot I could learn from you there. Yeah,
that'd be a blast. I would have a lot of fun doing that. I love coaching and teaching. And again, I talk about some of these veterans and the guys that are out there. It's just, I have so much shit in my brain of just fight related stuff that, if you're not teaching it, it's really just wasted. It really is.
Bro, I'll put in the work. I'm a quick learner and I'll put in the work and I don't care how I'll go with Tommy. I'm going to show up and do my best,
Yeah, I'm in. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
I love it. Last thing I got to ask you. Tell me about, mentors or people that you trained with, mentors, coaches. Did you have the success you did without having good training partners, good mentors and coaches around you? You had to at some time.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know what the formula for that is. I've been very fortunate to always, it's not always been the same person. Those people have come and gone and I think sometimes at the time they were who I needed in that moment. Right now, my jiu-jitsu coach I've had the same jiu-jitsu coach my entire career. He started as a kind of like an older brother figure, and he's kind of, as he's gotten older and he's in his mid 40s. I'm still, in my early 30s. So he's kind of transitioned to more of a father figure kind of person to me that I'd never really had. But, you got to have people around you that you're going to be as successful as the people around you for no reason. So it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be the same level of success, but you have to be around people that have the same mindset or care enough about you and aren't getting anything out of it. And you can't really search and find those people. Sometimes they kind of come to you or you find yourself weaving your way into situations that they happen to be in as well. But, early on, there was a guy, I talk about him all the time. His name was Marty Anderson. He took me, I had some amateur fights and wasn't doing very well. I wasn't really training, and Marty kind of took me under his wing. He was an older guy. He had a gym built in the back of his house. It was, pretty bullshit at the time. And I trained with him from that moment all the way through my entire amateur career, all the way through my pro debut. And as I got more successful, I outgrew what his capabilities of training me were. But it wasn't just the physical part of it. He guided me through that time in my life, and he was the person I brought my problems to, whether they were life or fighting or career or girlfriends or whatever it was. And then as I went on, and that moved me right into Scotty, who was still with me to this day. He's one of my closest. It's hard to even call him a friend because I feel like that's not an accurate representation of what he actually is to me. He's much closer than that. But Mark Montoya is another guy. He's my head coach now. I've been with him since 2017. I just kind of outgrew the gym and fighting situation in Omaha. I just can't be the big fish in a little pond and expect that you're gonna attain super incredible things. You kind of got to eat shit, and you have to be around people that are better than you, that are more successful than you. The best guy in the room is not going to be the best guy in the room for very long, because everyone around him is going to continue to get better chasing him. If you're the best guy in the room, you're not chasing anybody, and you're either like, people are either front runners, or they're really good at chasing. I'm personally a chaser. I need to see something in front of me that I'm trying to find. And that's my competitive itch. I'm constantly chasing something else. It's whether it's the person in front of me, whether it's like literally chasing someone and we're racing in strength and conditioning, or I'm trying to beat that guy in the gym. Like, you got to find ways to handicap yourself. So if I was just to get in a straight up fight with anybody in my gym, as much as I love those guys, I don't mean this in any kind of disrespectful way, it's probably not anyone in the gym that's going to beat me. But there's ways that we can handicap me, and we can take away certain tools that I have and then throw me in there without those tools and figure that out. So I think that's a whole nother piece of kind of my success. But, Mark is that guy. I trust him with my life. I trust him with my career. I trust Scotty with my life and my career. And they make my job very, very easy. They make the hard decisions. They've already done it with other people. They know how not to do it. They know where things are going to work. They know where it's not going to work. But a lot of that comes down to trust. You can have all the mentors come into your life that you want, but if you don't trust any of them, they doesn't really matter.
I wouldn't have done shit if I didn't go out of my way to go find better teachers, better mentors. I was willing to work hard, but if you're working hard on the wrong things, you're moving in the wrong direction. It might be making your life worse.
Right.
If you're working hard on the wrong things, you're literally making your life worse. So I had to go I agree with what you said entirely, that I had to go find people that I trust, that I knew generally had my best interest in mind, and they had a better vision than I did.
Right.
And then put in the work. Put in the work.
And they have to want to do it for nothing. And I'm not saying everyone, I think, in relationships gets something out of that, but you got to be careful, especially like in the sports world. Everyone wants to attach themselves to you. A lot of it's financial gain. A lot, you know what I mean? So like, the people that I've found are people that want to help you just because they want to see you be successful. And I think there's a lot of people that, like, I feel good helping people do something, whether it's coaching or whatever. Like, I feel good when someone does something well that I help them do. Turns out not a lot of people are like that.
I do too, but I can't help it. If I asked 8 billion people in the world, hey, would you like me to spend, countless hours of my life to help you be more financially successful? Most of them would say yes.
Right.
And there has to be a filter there of like, who are the ones that are serious? Who are the people that value my time, value the contribution that I would make?
Right.
There's a lot of people that would love for you to come coach them or train them for something. You got to find somebody they're going to respect who you are and the sacrifice you're making to spend important time of your day doing something instead of something else.
There's a balance there for sure.
I said this earlier, I can't help the whole damn world. I got to help the few people that I know that they're serious, they're committed, they value my time, they respect that contribution to their life, and they do the damn work.
Right.
And they do the work. I don't want any clients. I just throw people out of my programs. If they don't do the homework, they don't do the assignments, we just throw them out. I don't give them a refund. I don't say sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm sorry that they signed up.
Right.
I'm sorry that they squandered my time. What else I'm sorry? I'm most sorry that they wasted the time of my other clients, because 80% of the people that take a program with me, they complete the program, they did the work. It's not easy. These are things that I help people learn, things that are like going to help them create long-term success and create really different outcomes in their long-term financial future. And if somebody wants to get rich quick, they should go anywhere else.
Right.
It's like, imagine like all the things that you've learned and the things that you know about martial arts that it'd be impossible for me to know. So imagine if somebody comes to you and says, hey man, can you just teach me that shit this weekend?
Yeah.
I was like, what a disrespect to
it doesn't work like that.
The time and effort, and what a disrespect to reality to begin with, and the time and effort to you as an individual that you've put in to be the person you are and learn those lessons. So Yeah, I really appreciate you spending the time. Thank you for making it a priority to come here and chat with me and share some of your story with the audience. You got a Sirius XM radio show. Can you tell them a bit about that?
Yeah. So, first of all, I appreciate you guys having me. I'm glad that we could make it work. I've had a lot of fun. It's been a great conversation.
No one's more fun than Derek Moneyberg.
Yeah, it was. I've had a lot of fun, and it's good conversation. It's. I don't think that I don't get to have these kind of conversations very often. Like not a lot of people are into the deep thinking, kind of route to success and the ingredients that go into the meal. Most people aren't super interested in that. They just want to see what happens at the end. So it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I have a Sirius XM radio show. It's called it's on Fight Nation, channel 156.
Channel 156, Fight Nation. Tell them about it.
Yeah, we just talk about fights. It's all things MMA. It's fun. It's loose. It's flowy. It's behind a paywall. It's paid, satellite radio, so we say what we want. It's there's not a lot of censorship going on. We do what we want. We say what we want. The show goes wherever we want it to go. So, and then on the other side, a little more buttoned up, I work for ESPN and the UFC doing behind the desk analysts and just talking about the fights. And essentially my job is to promote the fighters. I love the UFC, but they do a good job promoting themselves. My job is to be the voice for the fighters, and try to tell stories, to tell the why and the how. There's a lot of promoters out there, and there's a lot of guys that are hired by the UFC to be the big, boisterous, loud guys. I'm the why and the how guy. I like the X's and the O's. So if you like guys to nerd out and tell you exactly why things are happening and how they happen, that's what I'm there for.
What's the best place for them to find you on social media?
Twitter and Instagram. It's totally me, 100% ran by me. I don't do the Facebook thing. I can't do the dumpster fire, but
what's your handle in there?
It's at Lionheart A Smith on both platforms.
Lionheart A Smith.
Lionheart A Smith.
Follow Lionheart A Smith. Thanks again, Anthony, for spending the time. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Success is not for everybody, and it may not be for you. If you are or are on your way to be a millionaire or multimillionaire, probably going to want to spend time with my clients. Probably going to want to have a personal relationship with me so we can accelerate that process, get you living up to your maximum potential, earning your maximum wage. You're going to want to click that follow button. You're going to want to click that bell and get notifications. Tune in every Friday. Tune in every Monday. You're going to love what you see. I look forward to having you as a client in the future.